All right, so today we're going to be working on factoring to eventually solve quadratic expressions. And so we've been working on this for a while from the beginning of the year because it is something you've done in Algebra 1, but for some reason it's something that's easy to forget after having a year of geometry. So let's go through. It's going to be different levels. Hopefully you can challenge yourself to reach the grand poobah level of factoring. And so we're going to go ahead and start with the very first level. Let's start with an easy one to factor. I have factored all of these by guessing and checking. After you do several of them, I think guessing and checking is the easiest way. It's also the way that I think you'll remember it the most 2 years from now or 3 years from now when you're taking an SAT test or an ACT test. So let's go ahead and start factoring this expression. What I want to do is come up with two things here that when I multiply the first two together, I get x squared. So I need something here and here that give me x squared, and that's x times x. And so x times x gives me x squared, but then I want something here and here that when I multiply it together gives me 8, but when I add it together it gives me 6, like 4 and 2. And then we can just check here. 4 times x is 4x, if I make these both plus signs here. And then if I check my outside terms, x times 2 is 2x, and if I add those together, I do indeed get 6x, which is my middle term there. And so correct answer here is x plus 2 times x plus 4. So I want you to try this one. This is the mouse level. Can you factor that expression? I would pause the video before you move on. Try it on your own, and if you get it before I tell you what the correct answer is, then you are in the mouse level of factoring. So hopefully you've done that. If I'm going to factor these two expressions, I'm going to start by having an x times an x, because that's the only thing that gives me an x squared. Then I want something here and here that when I multiply it together gives me 40, but when I add it together gives me 14. So if it helps to put things off on the side, you can go 40 and 1, you can go 20 and 2, you can go 10 and 4, you can go 8 and 5, and start listing as many factors as you can, but we can see that the 10 and 4 will work here. If I put plus 10 here and plus 4 here, then if I check it, this is 10x and this is 4x, and together that does give me 14x. And so it's x plus 4 times x plus 10. And if you got that, congratulations, you are on the mouse level. That's the entry level of factoring. Let's see if we can do another one here. This is a little bit more difficult because we have a negative number here. Process is going to be the same though. I'm going to start with something here and here that gives me x squared, so that's got to be an x times an x. Then I want something here and here that multiplies together to give me 24. So I can list the factors of 24 like 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 8 and 3, 6 and 4. And I'm trying to figure out somehow that I can get a negative 11. And so if I make them both negative, a negative 8 and a negative 3, then negative 8 times negative 3 gives me a positive 24, but my inside terms, that's negative 8x, and my outside terms is negative 3x. And so negative 8x and negative 3x does indeed give me a negative 11x. And so we have the correct answer. So I want you to try this level, the kitten level. So turn off or pause the video before you restart it and see if you can factor this equation. Hopefully you've done that. And now we're going to see if we can factor this equation together. It's x times x gives you x squared. Then I want something that multiplies together to give me a positive 12, like maybe a negative 4 and a negative 3. And if I go negative 4x, my inside terms, my outside terms would give me negative 3x. That does indeed give me a negative 7x. So x minus 3 and x minus 4 are my two factors. And hopefully you were able to do that. You've reached the kitten level. Let's move on. If I go and factor this equation, this is a little bit more difficult because I'm trying to find something that gives me a negative 32 here. So I'm going to take x times x because that gives me x squared. Then I want something here and here that multiplies together to give me negative 32. So it could be like a 16 and a 2. It could be a 32 and a 1. It could be an 8 and a 4. But I want to use them somehow to get a negative 14. And so if I go negative 16 and a positive 2, then I'm going to have a negative 16x here and a positive 2x, and that does give me negative 14x. And so my correct answer is x plus 2 times x minus 16. So what I'd like for you to do is to try this equation. Pause the video, see if you can come up with what the answer is here. Hopefully you've done that, and I'm going to, for the sake of time, I'm going to move on here a little bit quicker. I'm going to just show you what the answer is. We have x times x that does give us x squared, and this is going to give us 5x here. And if I check my outside terms, that's negative 1x. 5x and a negative 1x does give me 4x. And so my correct answer is x plus 5 times x minus 1. Hopefully you were able to do that because you have reached the poodle level. When we get back, let's get to going on number 4 here. Now these are a little bit more complicated because we have a number out in front. So when I factor this one, I'm not just going to be putting an x and an x down. I'm going to have like a 2x and an x to give me 2x squared. And so then I still want something here and here that multiplies together to give me 12. It could be 12 and 1. It could be 6 and 2. It could be 4 and 3. And I'm going to look to see if there is something I can put in here so that when I check it, my inside terms and my outside terms add up to 11. I always like to start with the factors that are closest together. So let's say, for example, that I put a 4 here and a 3 here. I want them both to be positive because I need a positive 12, and they're adding up to something that's positive, which is the 11. So then I want to check to make sure I've done this correctly. 4 times x is 4x. 2x times 3 is 6x. Well, that doesn't give me 11x. And so this is where you might have to guess and check a little bit. So what I'm going to do is erase what I've done here. I'm going to erase the 4 and the 3, and maybe it would work if I switch those two things around. So maybe if I put the 3 here and the 4 here, it'll work. So my inside terms would be 3x, my outside terms would be 8x, and 8x plus 3x does give me 11x. So the correct answer is x plus 4 and a 2x plus 3. So what I want you to do is to try this one. Hopefully you were able to do that. The correct answer here is x plus 1 and 4x plus 3. Now you may have started this one by putting down 2x times 2x because that does give you 4x squared. And you go through all the possibilities of things that give you 3 and they didn't work. And so then you'd have to then erase your 2's and put down an x and a 4x to see if you can get it to work. And this does work because 1 times 4x is 4x, x times 3 is 3x, and 4x plus 3x does give me 7x. 1 times 3 does give me 3, and x times 4x does give me 4x squared. So if you're able to do that, you have reached the antelope level, and you are moving up. Let's continue. Number 5. Again, here we have not only a number out in front, but we have 2 negative signs to deal with, so that makes things a little bit more difficult. I'm going to go ahead and do this one with you. I'm going to look for something here and here that multiplies together to give me 3x squared. So I'm going to say it's maybe an x and a 3x. But then I want something here and here that multiplies together to give me a negative 12. And again, I can use 12 and a 1, a 6 and a 2, a 4 and a 3. And I'm just going to try maybe some combination of the 4 and the 3 first and see if that works. Let's say I put the 4 here and the 3 here. I need one to be positive and one to be negative. So I'm just going to guess this one's positive and this one's negative. And if I try that, this is going to be 12x. This is going to be negative 3x. But 12x minus 3x doesn't give me negative 16x. So what I might do here then is erase what I've done and maybe switch the 4 and the 3 around. Maybe I'm going to put the 3 here and the 4 here. But then this is going to give me 9x. X times negative 4 is negative 4x, and it still doesn't give me 16x. So what I'm going to try then is, instead of 3 and 4, maybe I will try 6 and 2. And so I'm going to go maybe put the 6 here and the 2 here. 6 times 3x is 18x. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. And that gives me close. It's a positive 16x. So then what I can do is I'm just going to change my signs around. I'm going to make this one a negative and this one a positive. Then I'll have a negative 18x and a positive 2x, which does finally give me the negative 16x. So sometimes it requires a little bit of work in order to get the combinations that give you the correct answer. But I do have x minus 6 and 3x plus 2. I would like for you to try this one. Pause the video and see if you can work it out. Hopefully you're able to do that. I'm going to pretend that is what happened. Correct answer here is x plus 2 and 4x minus 3. And you could check to make sure that this works. This is 8x. This is negative 3x. 8x minus 3x does give you 5x. 2 times negative 3 does give you negative 6. And x times 4x does give you 4x squared. If you were able to find that on your own, you have moved to the ALK level. Congratulations. Let's move on. So now I'm going to factor something out of here. You see that there is no c value here, but I can still factor the greatest common factor out. I can pull a 2 and an x out of these parentheses. And so 2x times 2x does give me 4x squared, and 2x times 1 gives me 2x. So I'm just factoring out the greatest common factor there. And so I would like for you to try that with this one. Hopefully you've done that, and you're able to factor out maybe a 2x first. This is going to be x squared plus 12x plus 32. But then you can factor this expression further. And if you do that, you'll have the 2x on the outside, but then x times x gives you the x squared. The 8 times 4 does give you the 32. Then we have a 4x here, and we have an 8x here, and 4x plus 8x does give you 12x. And so that is the correct answer. You have reached the moose level. Let's move on. So if I factor this equation, I am going to maybe make this 2x times 2x. That gives me 2x squared, and maybe a positive 3 and a positive 3. And so this is going to be 6x. This is also going to be 6x. And so here my factors are the same. And so I can actually write 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3, or I can write it as 2x plus 3 squared. This happens to be a perfect square trinomial. So let's try that with this level. Can you factor that appropriately? And if you do, that will be the poobah level. So hopefully you've attempted to do that. Let's see if we can get the correct answer. 5x times 5x does give you 25x squared. 9 times 9 does give you the 81. Here we would have 45x plus another 45x. And so that does give us the correct answer. You have reached the poobah level. Congratulations on that one. One more level left. So here there isn't a b term, but I can still factor this. I want something here and here that gives me x squared. That's x times x. But the middle term is like a 0. So now I want something here and here that multiplies together to give me negative 64, but adds up to nothing. So I can use maybe a positive 8 and a negative 8, because this is going to be positive 8x, this is going to be minus 8x, and when I add those together I get 0. And so my factors are x plus 8 times x minus 8. So I'm going to have you try the same thing with this level here. Hopefully you've done that. We can factor out the greatest common factor first. The greatest common factor is a 2. A 2 goes into both 8 and 98, and I can take an x out. And then I want to multiply the 2x times 2 things to give me these 2 things. So 2x times 4x squared gives me 8x to the third, and 2x times negative 49 gives me negative 98x. So then I can factor this further. I can take 2x and factor this. Let me just show you this. The 2x times 2x gives me 4x squared. Positive 7 times negative 7 gives me negative 49. And I would have a 14x and a negative 14x, which cancels themselves out. And so the correct answer here would be 2x times 2x plus 7 times 2x minus 7. And if you've done that, you've reached the grand poobah level. So congratulations. You can tell your teacher in class tomorrow that you've done that. And that is this video. Good luck on factoring, and we will see you tomorrow in class.